What's going on, guys? It's Jesse here, and I'm with Landon from Younglife. So everybody say hi to Landon.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. So it's an early morning, so we're both kind of just waking up, but we still got some energy. You've got your Celsius drink there.
Oh yeah, dude.
Is that an energy drink or just?
Yeah, but they're like I don't feel like guilty is not the right word. When I drink like Monster, I've never had like a Monster or something like that. Every time I've tried to have like a Mountain Dew or anything like that, I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah.
This one, like I don't know, it's just like coffee. Like
Yeah.
but I don't drink coffee. But
Okay.
it's
a little less.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it
than your
like
average.
they say natural, so you like feel a little bit better about yourself when you drink it. So
Yeah, organic, right?
Yeah.
You put that label on, it's automatically healthy.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, it's clinically proven.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I personally like the white Monsters. They're like zero sugar, but they taste. I haven't drank them in a while, but when I was into lifting, I would drink that like as a pre-workout. The white Monsters.
I'm gonna have to try it because this thing has zero sugar. I have like 9 cavities. So
oh gosh.
Yeah, they're from like forever ago. Like back when I had braces and it was like hard to reach areas with brushing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've just like sustained 9 cavities for forever.
Yeah.
So I try to go. If there's a sugar-free option, I tend to go with that.
Okay.
So that is good to know.
Yes. Yeah. Go for the sugar-free.
Sure.
So Landon and I kind of just got to know each other about a month ago. So I joined Younglife, which is a ministry. And we'll actually, I don't want to give too much away, so I'll let you talk about that. But I joined Younglife, and Landon's a leader there. And so, yeah, we've had already a couple opportunities to go to trampoline park, laser tag, and it's been awesome getting a part of that and just getting to know Landon a little bit personally too. And so, yeah, we'll start off with the simple question, but what is something just today that you're thankful for? Just start off with the positive vibes.
Oh, yeah, wow. Today, I think my mother.
Yeah.
Her birthday's coming up in a couple of weeks. And I was thinking about it. I don't know why I was thinking about it this morning, but I was like, wow, just nice. Like me and my mom have a great relationship. I call her probably a couple times a week.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Virginia, so she's pretty far away, and I'm actually going home this weekend, so I'll see her potentially tomorrow. Like by the time I get there, it'll be kind of late, but I don't know. I'm just thankful for my mom.
Yeah, that's important, right? I'm pretty close with both my parents, and it's a blessing to have good parents, you know.
I like my dad. but just for some
you're
reason,
a mama's boy. Hey,
a little bit.
No problem being a mama's boy.
Yeah, this morning for some reason I was just like, oh, I like being April's son. You know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Her name's.
What does your mom do?
She is she's like changed it recently. She works for the health center at the University of Virginia.
Okay.
So she like does a lot with like student insurance and all that kind of stuff. So it's not tied with like the hospital UVA.
Yeah.
But she lives in Charlottesville. And like my sister goes to UVA, so it works out pretty well that she's able to see her. She used to work for the football program at UVA.
Oh.
So it's kind of weird, like the whole. I remember, I don't even know how long ago it was. It was a couple months ago. I guess it was November. There was like a shooting at UVA.
I think I heard of that.
Yeah. So like 3 football players died. One of the football player that survived actually just started going back to practice. But it's weird because like she knows some of those guys. So it's gonna be kind of weird when the next football season starts. Not seeing like Lavelle Davis on the sidelines. It's just very weird.
Yeah,
but that woman loves UVA athletics. So yeah, she has a good time.
Nice. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about the shooting.
Yeah,
it's really sad.
It still doesn't feel real. But
So you said you have a sister. Do you have any other siblings or just a sister? Or?
Yeah, I got 2 older brothers. We're all like 3 years apart, so I think he's 30 and then 27 and I'm 24, and my little sister is 21, which is weird.
Yeah.
It's weird having a sister that's 21.
Officially an adult.
Yeah.
That's crazy because I have 2 sisters, Kelly and Sydney, and we're all 3 years apart as well. I'm the oldest, and then 3 years. So that's a cool connection. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we're in recent years, me and my oldest brother have gotten a lot closer. me and my second brother, I've always just kind of been like, we're just brothers, like we're just even keel. And then me and my sister have always been kind of close. We shared a room for like 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
So you get pretty close
yeah.
with the person
Definitely.
when you share rooms. So
yeah. That's awesome. So yeah, one of the questions I wanted to ask, I don't know if I sent this to you in advance, but if you want to share, like, how did you come to know the Lord? Did you grow up in a Christian family, and what was that like for you?
Yeah. So my family, like I've never known not going to church.
Sure.
So we grew up in a pretty like old school kind of church, like not denominationally, but kind of like training of the pastorate, and a lot of the theological principles are very like Bob Jonesy.
Yep.
So like very, very traditional.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my background. So learned a whole lot about God and Jesus and the Bible growing up. And I'd say I like on a base level, like believed it. Like I could have told you the cross and the resurrection.
Sure.
But it wasn't until my sophomore year of high school that I'd say I like formally believed it. I was cheating on a Spanish test.
Oh, wow.
And got caught and felt a whole lot of conviction about it. And then just the gospel just kind of made sense.
Yeah.
We had moved a little bit, so we ended up going to a different church, and they were a bit more relaxed than some of the vibes of the original church I was at. And so we had actually like kind of like transitioned out of the youth group scene a little bit. Like I wouldn't say I was like going away from my faith, but we just were going less like as church youth groups are kind of cliquey. But like I was still like interested in my faith, and I would declare myself a Christian, but like that was like a definitive event where I was like, oh, I'm a sinner, and Jesus knew that in advance and yet still loved me. Because I grew up with this concept of through different experiences of like no one ever would, could, or should love me. And that just kind of came down mainly through like bullying and different events like that.
Yeah.
So I grew up with like a very low self-esteem, and then to hear that like that Jesus can love me, that he does love me, and kind of not really with me giving him necessarily a whole lot of reasons to like performance wise, but he just loves me because I'm his. Like just translated really well with me. Wow. So that's been in the days since, as I'm there's a song by King's Kaleidoscope.
I love King's K.
Oh yeah, they're great. They have a song called Safe Retreat, and he says still becoming who we are. And that's been kind of like a mantra of mine in recent weeks, as I'm like I'm still living into like fully being adopted, fully being loved, and like that translating into my mind. So kind of Younglife tying into things, I had started going to Younglife my freshman year of high school, and then sophomore year went a little bit more, became Christian, completely independent of church and Younglife, and then Younglife became big part of like my faith growing and having leaders invest in me, and that helped me to grow my faith and just feel like somebody tangibly that was just right in front of me, like just showing a lot of interest in me. Like I'm my leader sat through like high school Shakespeare shows. Wow. Yeah, that's love, right? Wow. Which in our defense, we did good. Like we had a good theater program, but like still, it's like
that's commitment.
If you're a college student and you're not like an English major or something like that, it's like this is a little rough.
Yeah, you can't understand most of it.
So it was just cool to like see guys that I wouldn't say they like made me feel like I was awesome in like an inauthentic way. Like I think that they just legitimately were like, Swain's just a cool guy, and it just made me feel very loved. And then they were able to like speak into my life and some difficult things. So Younglife was huge in my growth. And then I got involved in the youth group, and my youth pastor was really pivotal in a lot of my like formal discipleship. And then I started leading Younglife when I was in college. I was a middle school leader, and then did a bunch of summer camps. Only led for about a year. I got kind of overwhelmed with different school stuff, so stepped out from that. But still loved the ministry and still worked at some of the camps during the summers. And then ended up. It's now my employment.
So I want to hear too. I know you mentioned to me before about being convicted about discipleship while you're in Virginia, right?
Yeah.
And so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
What was that like? Yeah.
So I went to Liberty University in Virginia and had gotten done with my 4 years and was offered a job with the job I'd had for 4 years while I was a student. And so I was like debating taking that. But felt like very bubbled where I was because it's a very Bible belty kind of area. And so I was like
Disney World.
Yeah, a little bit.
Christian Disney World.
Yeah. Actually, what's fun? If you want to go to Christian Las Vegas, go to Branson, Missouri.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is the weirdest place I've ever been to in my life. Great place, wonderful, but very, very strange.
Yeah, I would never guess Missouri, right?
But what was I saying? Oh yeah. So was kind of like, I know I can do discipleship here, but felt like I need to branch out because it's so Christian around here that it's like, I don't want to say not a challenge. It's very comfortable.
Yes.
And there's parts of that I appreciate, and then there's other parts that I'm like, I don't know, like I just feel like that I should be somewhere else, and I feel like I'll expand my mind a little bit.
I think that's good. Yeah.
So I was looking into different things, and the discipleship thing came about through, I wrote a book on Christian dating culture when I was in college, partially out of pandemic boredom. And in it, I talk about how I think that the church oftentimes promotes the idea of getting married and having kids as like the forefront of what you're called to.
Sure.
And they're great things, but I don't think that all believers are called to that. I don't think that some people can't have kids. I don't think that for some people marriage is like a feasible option.
Yeah.
But I do think that all believers are called to discipleship.
Yeah.
And I realized that as I was writing it, and I was like, I'm not really doing that all that much.
Yeah.
So in a kind of like a haymaker decision, Younglife kind of came back on the radar a little bit.
Wow.
I'm a huge Milwaukee Bucks fan.
Yeah.
And so that's why specifically here in Bucks County, it's a really dumb reason to move to a place, but
hey, it's a sign.
I know, yeah.
It's the Gideon's fleece.
But then it's like, why not just Milwaukee, And it came on my radar. I had applied. I was looking into maybe going into seminary originally. So like senior year, they found out about a Younglife partnership with Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary.
Okay.
Where you could work for Younglife and then get a degree at the same time. And I was like, that sounds sick. So I enjoyed the application process and the interview process of that. Ended up not getting that one, but then Younglife was like fresh in my mind. So then found out about Bucks County and it was like, sweet. And so moved up here for that. And so discipleship and evangelism with the relational aspect. So
that's huge. And something I really like that you shared, Landon. I haven't read your book yet, but I'd like to. I don't know if you have more copies or something, but
I'm gonna have one in my car. I'll figure it out.
All right, we'll figure it out. But as you talked about, believers that can't get married, they might feel less than. And Jesus was single, right?
Yeah.
He was the most content person in the world.
Yeah.
And so was Paul. And I was just thinking about how God said in Genesis, right, to be fruitful and multiply. And I think that's a discipleship call as well. That's kind of the same great commission is to multiply disciples, to be fruitful and multiply God's image, right? And I just think that's cool. That's the thread of Scripture, like have dominion, take dominion, and spread God's glory. And that's done through discipleship.
Yeah.
It's not done through. It is also done through marriage, and that is a huge part of it because basically your kids are your disciples in that sense. But we're all called to disciple. It's a great commission, not a great suggestion. Is that something I like? I like to say, right?
It's like it's a weird zone within Christianity because it makes it sound like I'm going against the Genesis whatever when I say no, you're primarily you're not necessarily called to have kids. but it's like, one, there's like a lot of context there of like
Yeah.
Adam and Eve were quite literally one of the few people on earth at the time. So it's kind of like, they kind of needed to get cracking on making physical kids, but then like on a much larger scale, like you said, there's Jesus, there's Paul, John the Baptist. And it's like, I can't say that Jesus is the fulfillment of the law and then act like singleness and not having biological children is less than, when it's like, okay, well, Jesus is like that's the ultimate life here.
That's right.
I can't act like he's less than.
Yeah.
Or Paul. I mean, there's a whole theory that Paul was married at one point in time.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and
Sanhedrin or whatever.
Yeah, and then like John the Baptist, but like there's no record of kids, so it's like, and that was huge in their culture. So it's kind of countercultural for them to like not.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
and I have a friend. Won't share his name, but he's married and can't have kids, and he was just expressing, that's tough for him right now in the season, and just that's a good desire, but also that God still has that huge purpose for me of discipleship, in the midst of that. So, so we talked a lot about Younglife and kind of how you got involved, but I don't think we actually described what Younglife is. So if you want to take a second, like, what is Younglife and what do they do? What's their mission?
Younglife's mission is to introduce adolescents to Jesus Christ and help them grow in their faith. It's started by a minister back in 1941 in Gainesville, Texas, and has since grown to be in over 100 countries. It's in all 50 states. It's the largest youth ministry organization on the continent of Africa. Which is just a wild thought.
I think I heard, what's it, 100 million people come to, or 1 million people come to Christ?
I think 1 million. I think 100 million is generous. But we'll take it.
I knew there were some zeros and one and a million.
But it's a big ministry, and it fills a very specific niche. It'll work well with church kids, but it is primarily designed to be reaching what we call the furthest out kid, and that's not necessarily like, oh, this is just the evilest kid you can find, but it's more like
find the Apostle Paul's.
But it's designed. It's incarnational ministry, so it's designed to be like, hey, I'm going to invest in the lives of these guys who they're not interested in going to church, but they will hang out at Dairy Queen, especially if you offer free blizzards. Anybody will come out for free blizzards.
I love that mint Oreo blizzard. I don't know if they still have it. It's the green one.
I haven't been a mint guy.
You're not a mint guy.
But they have this like cheesecake thing going on right now.
Oh wow!
Insane.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, it's like I can sometimes, like when I go hang out with guys, it is literally just to like get to know them and talk about their life, and then like it's Jesus doesn't really come up all that much, and that might sound like, well, then what is the point? And I'd say like, I'm trying to get there, but like sometimes it's just we're just building a relationship. Like I'm their leader. I'm like pouring into their life. Part of discipleship is sometimes just the nooks and crannies of everyday life. It's not necessarily just like this is what the scriptural passage is.
Something I've always thought about this, Landon, is Jesus spent 3 years with his disciples, and he basically had sleepovers every night. Like if you think about it, they lived together, they slept together, they were traveling together, and they were doing everything together. And I don't think the disciples every second were talking about a Bible verse or praying. Like they were friends. They were basically just best friends for life. And obviously there was totally a lot of spiritual conversation here with Jesus, right? But it was caught. Their desire to be like Jesus was caught because that was just who he was, and I just think, there's the relationship aspect of Jesus, and it's huge. It's, just getting to know someone can make a huge impact because they know you're doing it because you love them, right? And the greatest commandment is to love, and also they're doing it and they know you're a Christian. They know you're doing it for the sake of Christ. And so that speaks volumes.
Because there's a lot of guys that I'm very mindful of a lot of the criticisms of a lot of youth ministries. And so I'm trying to actively not be those things. So I never want to create an environment where a kid feels like pressurized to believe the gospel, like they have to, or at camp or anything. I'm never trying to make anybody cry or anything like that. If that's a natural overflow, that's fine. But I'm never trying to coax that out of a person. And I'm never trying to make a kid feel like the second that you don't believe this, if you say like, hey, I heard this message and it's not for me, I never want a kid to feel like, oh, I was only ever trying to evangelize to you. If you say no, I'm gonna be like, great. Yeah. You want to go play pickleball tomorrow? Like I care about them as people. Yeah. Not solely like my love for them is not contingent upon whether they believe the same thing that I believe. And so I think that in and of itself, that speaks volumes, because there's going to be people that just don't follow Christ. Yeah. And like there's some people that I was friends with in high school. This particular person is a transgender person. I'm terrible with like proper terms. I need to get better at all that stuff. But I've had gospel conversations with them. Yeah. And I've been able to have some credibility in their life because the way that I treated them, regardless of whether they believed what I believed or not. And so they know me to be like, this is what I think of when I think of Christians. And I'm like, I'm like, good. That's cool. I'm glad that it's associated with kindness and not just a whole lot of judgment and preaching at a person or whatever. Yeah. It's, I'm big on that.
That's huge. And that's how the Father loves us. Yeah. He doesn't love us, when we're doing amazing and responding to the gospel. He loves us while we were yet, Romans 5:8 says, Christ loves us while we were yet sinners. Like when we were at our worst state, he loves us. Yeah. And he didn't just abandon us if we reject. I mean, I know in my life, I walked away from God a lot of high school. And imagine if God just said, oh, I quit, He's not listening. Like, that's not how God loves us. So why should we do any less, Yeah. That's huge. That's awesome. Yeah. So Landon, that's awesome what you're saying about Younglife. And yeah, I support the mission with that. And yeah, I love working with you too. And what advice would you give someone that's just entering ministry? Specifically, I'm kind of envisioning someone kind of younger. What advice would you give them?
Oh, you don't know everything, but you also probably know a lot more than you think. Oh, wow. And what I mean by that is like you need to be a student, but I think you also need to present a lot of fresh ideas because you have there. I just read this book on it's called Unreasonable Hospitality. It's about the restaurant industry, and it's from the like at one point in time the number one ranked restaurant in the world. One of the guys that used to own it, and he talks about how when they would hire people, he'd say, fix one thing in this room. Like it was like this big room that they like just basically stuffed everything in. And it'd be sometimes the person would fix like a really tiny thing, and they're like, that's a great improvement. Other times they're like completely systematize everything and organize everything. And he was like, if you shut down creativity really early on in a person, if you just kind of like treat them like they don't know anything, they kind of will adopt that mentality and will you'll like stifle a lot of creativity in them. So I think that you do know a lot. I think that everybody is becoming a student, and so you kind of hold things loosely. Like you can have your convictions and have everything, but just come into it knowing that like, hey, it's good to be challenged on stuff. Definitely. And think through things. That'd be the biggest advice. And then secondary to that, if somebody has been in the same, like, so for Younglife, for me, there's people that have been around for a long time, get around them, see what their regular rhythms are. Because they know something about longevity. Sure. And that longevity is a beautiful thing. And it's hard to achieve. And especially this is something that I'm like, it's odd how true this is. So in Younglife, there tends to be a turnover around the 3-year mark, a pretty like high spike, or around like the first 3 years. And I'm discovering that like the longer I'm in it, like are usually around the 3-year mark. Usually if you get past the 3-year mark, then it's like a lot better. Yeah. And I'm like, that doesn't make any, I'm like, why?
Yeah. Why 3? Yeah.
It's the training courses and the adjustment of everything. I think that like, if you learn, you like really hunker down into the advice of like, there's a lot of turnover at the beginning because it's hard and you got to get into some.
I think it's the same with youth pastors too. Yeah. There's a huge in pastors. Yeah. There's a huge dropout early.
Yeah.
But if you hit that point, yeah.
Yeah, and it's some people it's not a good fit, and that's not like a bad thing. But I think that I'm discovering that you have to actively fight discouragement.
Yeah.
You have to get into some healthy rhythms early on, and like it's good to have longevity. Like my boss has been in the area in ministry in some context for close to a decade.
Yeah.
And so there's some things that he's able to see coming to fruition because he's just been around them.
Yeah.
Been around the block.
Yeah.
So
I guess to summarize what you're saying, I'm hearing, use your creativity and also be around veterans, be around people that have been in it, which is it's kind of opposite. It's like use your energy as your freshness, but also be around people who have been seasoned, and that balance is huge. And one of the things I actually talked about this on the last episode with my friend Tim about, there's so many criticisms on Gen Z, and some of it's maybe true, some of it's kind of like maybe not true, and almost makes them feel so limited and spoken bad about. But one of the highlights, I think, is they're more creative than almost any other generation. If you look at social media, they're more bold to do crazy things than ever before. Back in the day, people wouldn't be posting videos of them, doing just crazy stuff. Like, so now there's almost like a freedom in expressing yourself, and that can be used for the Lord, and that can be used in such a positive way. And we need to like encourage that creativity and champion that and say, use these gifts. These gifts are given you by God for a reason. So creativity is the image of God too. Like God, he's creative, and he created the world, and he made an anteater. That's like, I mean, how creative can you be?
Looking things.
So, they're scary, man. I've never seen one in person, but
it's just
they're just like
a weird concept of an animal, but I mean,
he
knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So, Landon, what are some things you do for fun? Like when you're not doing Younglife, when you're just chilling, what are some of your hobbies?
Writing's a big one. It's just kind of therapeutic for me. Reading, I read a lot. Mainly right now, audiobooks. I'm just on the run so much that it's been helpful to do audiobooks.
What are some name drops? What are some good books?
I'm reading a book right now. It's kind of fascinating. It's called The History of the World in 6 Glasses. And it's like taking me through, so it's like beer, wine, spirits, Coca-Cola, coffee, and there's one other one. It might be rum, but it's kind of like the influence culturally, and how different like drinks were known in time periods, like how influential wine was as like a barter system, and used, like drinks have sometimes just been used as payment.
Oh wow!
For a lot of stuff. So it's that one's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Oh dang, there's some good ones out there. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Was the last book that I read that I was like, wow.
Yeah, I've never read the book. I know the story.
Yeah,
but he was a scientist right during the day, and then like became crazy at night.
Yeah, it's got the same vibe as Frankenstein. Might be my favorite book ever. I read the audiobook of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and it's the guy who played Thorin from The Hobbit does it, and it's fantastic.
Oh, I love.
So it was really interesting. So that was probably that one's been the big like, oh, you got to read this if you haven't as of late. And then Narnia. I mean,
C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, read all those recently, and I was like, man, this is just wholesome. I didn't grow up with them, so it's cool to see.
That's cool. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back with you guys. So, all right, and we are back. So, yes, Chronicles of Narnia. That's an awesome book.
Yeah, they were great. Other
hobbies. Did you ever read Screwtape Letters? That's a must read.
Yes, but when I think it was the first ever C.S. Lewis book that I read, and I read it, and I don't think that my reading level was up to par just yet, so it very much went over my head.
Okay.
I want to reread it so that I can like.
Yeah, I think there's a version for dummies. I think I've read that one. It's the Old English that's always tough. But.
Yeah, because like I've read a few of his audiobooks, like The Problem with Pain, like different ones like that.
Yeah.
Like What Christians Believe, all that stuff. And I like understand it a lot more now, but I'm still like, gosh, dude, you just are.
He's deep.
Yeah, and it's like all this like very old toned like English that's like I just don't get you.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot more screw tape that I would get now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird that it's like the same guy that wrote Chronicles of Narnia, which is like pretty basic English.
Sure.
And then is like this most complex whatever.
Yeah.
Mere Christianity I've not read yet.
Oh, you got to read that. Yeah, that's huge.
I'm excited.
That's a huge one.
There's some books that I'm like
You know Matt Chandler? You ever heard of him?
Yeah.
He said he reads that every year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I look up to Matt Chandler. He says, "Yeah, I read that book every year."
Yeah,
it's that powerful.
I've read "To Live As Christ, To Die As Gain" by him, and then
I haven't read that one.
It's pretty good. It's on Philippians.
Okay,
it's really good. And then I've read "Mingling of Souls" by him.
Okay.
So yeah, that was really good. But there's some books that I'm like, I feel like I have to read this paperback.
Yeah.
And the other books that I'm like, I'm fine with it being an audiobook. And it's like a weird, I don't know how I compartmentalize it in my head. Other hobbies, big Star Wars guy.
Okay.
Like
favorite character?
Oh man.
Kylo Ren.
Oh gosh, no. Most
I like Darth Maul personally. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth with
Double
Maul.
sword.
That's a good one. Yeah. Clone Wars had a lot of depth with him. Favorite Jedi, just because I think he's just cool, and I wish that they had done so much more with him. Kit Fisto, like the green guy with the tentacle looking stuff. Okay. I just think he's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, he might be Plo Koon. Just goated. Yeah, a lot of Clone Wars stuff. Actually, dang it. Well, we meant to watch Bad Batch and Mandalorian yesterday, and we just weren't able to.
Yeah.
Something was wrong with my Xbox. Play a little bit of video games, not all that much. Play disc golf. Love disc golf.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's happening at Karen now.
They
built a whole thing.
Yeah,
I haven't done it yet, but I've been wanting to.
I need to try the course here. I haven't yet.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to get into. I like pickleball a lot. I want to play it more.
Yeah.
I just never have time.
Bro, my grandparents are insane at pickleball. My pop-up's amazing at tennis. He hits the ball against the wall like all the time just for fun. Yeah. And he just like wrecks all the people in the his like little community center that he lives in. I mean, he's amazing. So I played with him, and it's fun. Pickleball it's fun.
Yeah.
So definitely get into that if you can.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a hobby or more of like I guess it's semi-profession. I'm a lacrosse coach.
Yeah.
So I guess coaching semi is now a bit of a hobby. But we're 3-0 to start the season.
Yeah, and that's an awesome way to connect.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's been great.
Being in the school system.
Yeah.
Being able to be there for them.
Yeah, and they know that I'm a Christian. They kind of make fun of me for it, which is like funny because it's like, bro, you're wearing a cross necklace. Why are you making fun of me?
Yeah. Right.
But it's been interesting. But it's been one of my favorite parts about moving up here has been getting back into lacrosse because I played it for like 7 or 8 years when I was growing up. So yeah,
it's awesome.
It's been a good time.
Yeah, I was always a baseball guy, so I never did the lacrosse, and they were always rivals. So,
well, who do you pull for?
What's that?
Who do you pull for?
Pull for?
Yeah, like professional. Who's your team?
Oh, my team, Phillies.
Okay,
yeah, I'm pro Phillies. So.
Yeah, I'm a Red Sox fan.
Oh, Boston. Yeah. Oh no, we're more rivals.
Yeah, not even
lacrosse and Red Sox.
Yeah, not even much of a. I don't like really keep up with it. I went a few years ago to a Red Sox game.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have a team, so I was just like, pure Boston. Yeah. So I got the hat and everything, but like can't say I'm like.
Yeah. You're not hardcore. Yeah, I'm not really hardcore Phillies. Like I couldn't. Pretty many.
I don't keep up with it. But I don't know. It's a good time. The stadiums, love it. Boston's beautiful. It's such a nice city.
Oh yeah.
So my sports teams are.
So you've got a wide variety of hobbies. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well-rounded guy.
Well-rounded. That's cool. That's important if you're in ministry to have some hobbies too. That's your humanity connects with people.
Yeah.
We don't have to, just always be talking about. I mean, it's important to talk about the Bible and God, obviously, but having other things is a really good way to build a bridge. So that's awesome.
If this might be like. This makes us sound kind of pretentious at Younglife, but like one of my criteria bases for being a leader is you have to be like an interesting person. Like if you are just dull, it just doesn't work, because kids very much, we're kind of talking about like Gen Z and stuff like that. Kids can smell inauthenticity from a mile away. They can smell fake. And so if you are just like, suddenly you're interested in everything, and you just have you're just not fun to be around. Fun is the better way. If you're not fun, you can't be a leader.
Yeah.
Because like that is a huge part of just life. And actually, I'm reading this book right now on middle school ministry, and they talk about like girls tend to be very like typically it's very talking based. So like girls like they form friendships through talking. Guys, on the other hand, tend to be more doing things with other dudes, and that's how they've formed friendships. So like that's true for me with like
I definitely see that.
Like me and my buddies, like we played disc golf all the time. We work together. We play video games together. Girls, I've heard recently that like if girls go certain time periods without
talking, I heard the same thing.
Which I was like, that's fascinating.
Same thing.
So it's been very interesting. So it's made me like
I heard
be big about like not ghosting.
We might have listened to the same thing, but I heard this. It was like a speaker, and he basically, there was a huge mixed audience, guys and girls, and he comes into this thing. He's giving a conference, and he says, how many of you girls have talked to someone about your emotions in the last week? Raise your hand. And every single girl's hand went up. And then he said, guys, how many of you in the last month have talked about your emotions or just your struggles, with another guy, or like talk deep about life? Like 3 hands came up, and he said, out of those, there's hundreds of people there. And he said, out of those 3 hands, how many of you had, were in a church group that facilitated those questions? And they all said, it was my church. So you see there, and then, he said most guys, they barely ever have that. And then he asked the girls, he said, girls, if you went for a month without talking about your emotions, how would you feel? And they all just cracked up, started laughing, and they said, I'd feel horrible. He said, imagine if you went even a week. They said they couldn't do it. And it's just crazy how girls are just so much, and so much more, inclined to share that. And I think guys need that more too. Guys need to grow in that vulnerability and that brotherhood. And it's just I thought that was an interesting way to make a point as a conference speaker.
And I'm trying to, as a Young Life leader, be a safe space where my guys, if they want to talk about whatever, like they could talk about like anxiety, they could talk about what like their fears, their different insecurities, and being a guy in their life who can be open with them about different things. Like one of the kids I hung out with yesterday, I picked him up and went after school. We went to Taco Bell. We've talked about, and even just like a little car ride, we've talked about how I talked about a couple weeks ago. I had this like conflict with a guy that's like, I have like a guys' night every Thursday with the dudes in my apartment, and then there's like a few other dudes that are just from the surrounding area that know the people, and had this like weird conflict with one of the guys over someone basically was like making fun of his wife on social media. He started bringing up where the guy worked and who that guy was dating, and I was just like, this is getting a little too much for me. So I'll essentially all I said was, let's just calm down for a second and think through what we're about to do. And then he didn't like that. So like we had a bit of like a conflict, and it was being able to like be vulnerable with the high schooler that I was hanging out with, and be like, part of growth is like conflict management. And part like actually getting into the nitty gritty of like loving people as Jesus loved and turning the other cheek and blessing and not cursing. Getting down into the nitty gritty of that is difficult, and it's stressful because it's so countercultural, and it's so weird to actually be faithful in that. And so I was just like, like I'm a little stressed about it. I'm a little like grieved about it. And I thought if nothing else, like I'm not sure how he's processing it, but like if he's able to go into it and be like, yeah, it's hard for me to do that too, and have him be able to like process his emotions properly.
Yeah,
like, that's a win for me.
Yeah,
is to be able to see him do that. So it's weird to see what sticks with kids and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Like I could say something, but I'm like, this is profound, and
I know, right?
and it'll never stick with a kid. But then like the most random thing I've ever said is they'll be like, oh yeah, this every embarrassing thing I've ever told them. It's lock trap.
I know. I remember I told some stories. I was teaching at youth group, and I told some stories about how I like got in trouble at my Christian school when I was in kindergarten. Like I did some crazy stuff, and they remember all of that, and they, what did we talk about last week?
No idea.
what book are we in?
So
it's funny what kids pick up on.
But
sometimes too, they remember spiritual things too.
Oh yeah,
that's cool. Like when they remember, I remember when you said this about God, and I'm like, wow, that's a huge win. You held on to that, and I didn't even remember. I even said that sometimes. So
but I actually had a call with a guy yesterday who I worked with for a month right after I graduated high school. So Younglife has all the different camps. And I did work crew. He was the landscaping boss. So I'm doing that this summer. I'm going to be landscaping boss. So I called him and I was just like, hey, give me some practical tips, whatever. And I remember some little things that he said, but I mainly remember stuff that he did where he sat with us when we ate meals. Different intentional things that he did, different conversations I was able to have with him because I felt comfortable sharing with him because I saw how much more of an investment that he put into us than other people did. And that's not a fault on them. But it was just, I was like, it's, in my experience, it's been stuff that, the old cliche of people will always remember how you feel, that you made them feel. I remember everything with that, with him. And the same thing with my Younglife leaders. Half the time I don't remember what all we talked about, but I remember that they cared and they showed up and they made me feel loved and cared for. I made one of my Younglife leaders. I don't even know. I think it was because my gas was low and his gas was low in his car. But we both wanted ice cream. So I made my Younglife leader sit outside in the cold and eat ice cream with me. And he didn't complain once. Years later, he was like, yeah, I hated that. but we both laughed about it. But it was like, wow, you care enough to you're not complaining about you just care about to hang out with me. And that meant a lot. And there's a lot of stuff that in the nostalgia of everything, you're like, wow, this is really nice. And so, you hang on to the good experiences of, I just impacted a person positively in this way, and I will speak more to their life through acting like Jesus necessarily than just saying what Jesus said and all that stuff. But that's awesome. What you say is also very important.
Words and actions. That's kind of what I talk about, is your character is your words and your actions. It's about what we speak, but also I have this statement I like to say: your walk talks and your talk talks, but does your walk talk louder than your talk talks? Don't try saying that. Your walk talks and your talk talks, does your walk talk louder than your talk talks? It's basically saying actions speak louder than words, and that's a long-winded way of saying that. But I had someone say that to me once, and I never forgot it. It's just your walk, it speaks something, and your talk, it speaks something, but does the way you live speak louder than the words you say? It's powerful.
But you're just trying to get fancy on them.
Well, it helps people kind of just wakes them up. What did you say?
What?
Yeah. So we'll close out, Landon. But thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your wisdom. And it was cool when I invited Landon. He was like, "I'm no sage. I'm no."
Yeah, I was like, I got a whole lot. I've been in here for a year and a half.
You definitely have a lot to offer, Landon. I'm excited to get to know you more. And all right, so here's a speed round, bunch of lightning questions.
All right, bring them on.
So speed, coffee black or with cream and sugar?
No coffee. I've had 2 cups my entire life.
Bruh.
I'm just not a coffee guy. I love everything about it aesthetically, the smell and the coffee shop vibe.
So you're a tea guy then, or any?
Not even that. I this is I've only taken up Celsius. I fell asleep at the wheel probably 8 months ago. And so that's been now it's okay, anytime I'm feeling tired. I'm driving home tomorrow and I'm going to have one of these when I'm on the road.
Okay.
Just really nervous about it.
Yeah.
So
okay. So no coffee.
No coffee.
Favorite sport to watch?
Basketball.
Favorite sport to play?
Basketball.
Favorite music genre?
Indie, even though I'm not necessarily sure what all that is defined to that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone knows. I don't think anyone knows what indie means.
I'll say maybe folk.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like a lot of a good like folk, bluegrass, kind of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Favorite music artist?
Overall, John Mayer.
I love John Mayer.
Yeah, he's been.
Yeah. My parents love him too.
Yeah, I saw him a couple weeks ago.
You saw him a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, he's doing a solo tour for. It was in Newark, and it was like a lot of old stuff. He played. I've now seen him twice, and he's played all of the songs that I've wanted to hear him play.
You know the song "Stop This Train"?
Oh,
that one makes me cry every time.
Oh, dude, that'll wreck you. Yeah, he didn't play that. No, did he? I've heard him play it at least once.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
He's cool.
Yeah.
Disc golf or spike ball?
Disc golf.
Mountains or beach?
Ooh, beach, but I burn.
Yeah, the Irish blood.
Yeah, it'll get you.
I'm 75% Irish, so I got you.
Dang.
Jogging or biking?
Oh, I'm trying to get into running, but I will say biking for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to run a 5K in May.
Nice.
But I just got sick on Friday, so I like lost 7 pounds, and I haven't been able to go back to the gym to do it. So for now, I will say biking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that was my last question. So, last thing I'll leave off is how can people number one be praying for you as you're going forward in your ministry, and also how can people connect with you? And if you want to mention your books and social media for that.
If you're trying to connect with me for book stuff, I have an Instagram page called Landon Swain Writes. I also have a TikTok with that. And that's just kind of, I don't really use it all that much. I do have more books coming out. But that's primarily the way. Swain Train 47 on Instagram is my just personal.
Wait, say that again.
Swain Train 47.
Okay.
Yeah. And then oh dang, what was the other thing you said?
How can people be praying?
The important thing. Ministry development. We're trying to launch middle school ministry, so I'm trying to make good. Right? Yeah. So trying to make a lot more parent connections, because with middle school ministry specifically, parent involvement is huge. Mm-hmm. So trying to connect with a lot of parents. And then I'd say a big one that's kind of separate is there's a local thrift store organization that donates a lot to organizations that work with kids. So they're a donor of ours, which is great. Yeah. And they donate a good amount of money, but they would donate so much more if we're able to help them get more donations. Yeah. So trying to get 3 to 5 bins or sheds put up in the area would essentially double the amount of money that we get from them, which would be huge. Okay. So trying to get some pieces together to work on that and get that developed, because that would be awesome. Okay. That'd be $25,000 more a year. So just trying to get some good church connections, because it's hard getting churches to support you, because churches support so many different things. Yeah. But this is a very passive one. So hopefully they'll catch on to just have a bin in our parking lot, which will add traffic to our parking lot. Easy money. Yeah. So sure, we'll let you do that. And they're essentially donating $5,000 passively to us. So hoping that'll come through, because that would be a huge win. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Landon.
Yeah.
And we'll sign off. And anything you feel led to say? Or
I was going to say earlier, we had a meeting probably a month and a half ago. It was right after I met you. Yeah. And I appreciated, it was in a text you said, Lord willing, we'll do this meeting. Or I don't even know what we were doing, but you said that. And I was and I brought that up at the meeting. I was I don't know many people that are obey that very miscellaneous thing from James, where it's Lord willing.
I try to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was oh, that's a cool thing for you. That's a cool discipline.
Yeah.
I will oftentimes forget to say, I'll remember it after I said something. I'm dang it, I should have said that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, it's really powerful. I believe in it because we really don't know the future, and it helps us basically remember that we can't control anything.
Yeah.
I really, and some people, like, they say it joking, like, oh yeah, Lord willing, like, but it is really, I think, powerful, if you really believe it. So
it's also a nice little easy out when you have to cancel something.
Yeah,
it's like, the Lord just didn't will it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. The Lord wasn't willing it.
Oh my God.
When really you just didn't want to go.
Yeah.
You blame God for it.
It happens. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, guys.